Hi, love. Hello, and welcome to Co-Creative Healing Journey. My name is Greta. I am a healer, and this is Love Messages, where we are going to be bringing through some messages from Spirit on the topic of joyous creativity. And we're going to be placing that, of course, within the context of love and relationships. So, there we go. Enough said. If you want to know more about the healing process that goes with it, I'm going to make an extension of this reading over on my Patreon. Check out the description box. Let's get right to it. We have an overall energy of divine masculine, the divine masculine. With that, we have an energy of sexuality. We have got forgiveness making another appearance. It's been making frequent appearances here on the channel. And finally, we've got abundance, which I feel like is maybe a side energy. We'll see how it unfolds. But we have an overall energy of the divine masculine. And the divine masculine is showing up to talk about wanting to do things, wanting to create things, wanting to basically take things to the next level. There's a very ambitious energy connected to this, and ambition not understood in the old cycle sense, but ambition is very much about who we want to be, what we want our lives to be like, and where we're going to take it. Very King of Wands energy, and that's the energy showing up when we are talking about joyous creativity. So that Spirit wants us to think about relationships as a way in which we find people, we find connections that are in alignment with our ambitions, who we want to be, where we want to go in life, what we want to create, even to some extent for those of you where that resonates, how we want to serve Spirit, for us to find people who are in alignment with that. And where we find there is alignment, we come into the energy of sexuality, which in this deck very much talks about the notion of how sexuality has become very degraded into something that is very instrumental, something that people do to, fill, what's the word? Itch, to take care of an itch or to fulfill lower desires, but really it is something that starts in the self, that we first are sexual, we feel good about ourselves, we love ourselves, we value ourselves, and then we can find someone to share that with. So there's the notion of something that was or that has become lowered, being uplifted, brought back to its original form, or at least into a higher form. And it's the same thing with relationships. So the same notion of you being very happy and content and also confident in who you are. And again, that notion where you want to go, what you want to do with your life, what you want to create, and then finding people that matched with that without diminishing yourself, without devaluing yourself, in the sense that you are letting go of what you value about yourself, what's important about you, relevant about you, letting go of those things within the context of relationship or for the sake of relationships. And then on the other side of that, we have forgiveness. And the forgiveness is kind of talking about the work that we need to do. I forgive myself and I'm forgiven. Ultimately, when we do this, we're going to find people who are not a match. And it is a matter of forgiving ourselves for not being who they want, need, or deserve for us to be, and also forgiving them for not being who we want to be. But especially when I read it this way, it's like forgiving, I forgive myself, I am forgiven. It's forgiving ourselves for not being who and what they wanted to be, and then forgiving ourselves for saying no, for saying I pass. This is very interesting, very, very interesting, because we're very much conditioned to believe, and there are a lot of messages that it's very selfish to choose yourself. Again, as I was talking about, there's this kind of darkness around the concept of okay, that's why darkness around the concept of ambition, creating the kind of life that we want to lead. And this forgiveness card is talking about how we have to give ourselves permission to do that. And sometimes it does take forgiveness, especially of shedding old patterns from family, ancestry, society, but also old relationships where we may have been judged for doing that, have been told that we're being selfish or being cold, we're being distant, we're being, XYZ, to shed that past energy in order to make that happen. So abundance is the new line. It's the new energy. When we do this, when we come into a space where we can have that match, we have abundance. People who can match us in joyous creativity. So that was the first card. The first energy is abundance. Second one is worthiness. Beautiful. Wow. And then we've got the distorted masculine. Interesting. Divine masculine, distorted masculine. Yeah. Oh, goodness. I spent quite a few days looking into that energy, actually, like from afar. Thank God, it's like on online watching videos and stuff like that. But we'll talk about it. I've done my homework to give you this reading, and then I also have done in my personal life. But let's get to it. We have abundance here. Listen, when you find that match, when there are people who can match you in who you are and where you want to be, you have essentially this joyous creativity. I do think there's a card in this deck that I'm gonna choose to go bring out. Oh, right there. Bottom of the deck. We didn't have to go far. It's right there. It's up for grabs. This is the joyous creativity. When you are with people and you go on this journey together and everything is open and everything is up for creating, right? Do we want to go here? Do we want to go there? Do we want to create this? Do we want to create that? There are no limitations, but it's at the bottom of the deck. So the notion is there. But then Spirit is talking about something else when it comes to abundance. Yeah, this is you. This is inside of you. This is not, for now, something to find with others. We might talk about that next week, but here and now we're talking about you. You have an abundance within yourself. You are an abundant being. And part of your abundance is precisely experiences that you've had, things that you've learned along the way, lessons. You have certain approaches, certain ways of doing things, certain things that you love, that you value, certain beliefs, certain principles, and all of that is part of your abundance. And it's part of your spiritual, your soul, your personal energy that you can work in order to co-create things. It's what you bring to the table. But in order for you to know yourself and see yourself as this abundant being, you have to come from a place of worthiness and a space where you are loving and valuing yourself, and therefore you're going to be able to love and value the reflection that you're going to see in the matches, where people are able to match that energy and to join you in that. But it starts from a space of you first and foremost being able to see it as something worthy, something valuable, so that you yourself are not blaming yourself, or you're not limiting yourself or judging yourself, or you're not shaming yourself, feeling guilty for choosing to be you and to go about you and to make that a requirement in a relationship. And what Spirit is saying is that you're making the baseline a requirement, and that's normal. That's healthy. That's actually a good idea. Because in this image, yeah, let's go back to it. This person is the baseline. Who they are is the baseline. Then the reflection can happen. But if you're continually changing the baseline, or if you just adjust the baseline in a way that is untrue and inauthentic, then the reflection will be untrue and inauthentic, right? It's back to that notion that we teach people how to treat us, but we also craft and create relationships based on how we show up in that relationship. If we show up in a relationship and say, this is who I am, this is my dream, this is where I'm headed, then that's a piece of data to take it into consideration as the relationship progresses and evolves. But if we don't do that, or if we show up and say something inauthentic, then that inauthentic thing will be the piece of information that is taken into consideration as the relationship evolves, right? And so I just did the life healing, and in that healing, the central energy right here was the divine feminine, and here we have the divine masculine. So when it comes to life and joyous creativity, it's very much about going into the divine feminine energy and who we are, listening to the truth of who we are, and then going into an energy of co-creation through allowance and a more natural flow. Here in the context of relationship, and straight away in the messages, Spirit is saying that it's about stepping up, being empowered, and showing up with a powerful disposition that is of the divine masculine energy, that again is in service to the divine feminine. So this is who I am. It's not divine masculine energy saying, I want everything my way. I want you to do everything that I say. It's not that. It's like, this is who I am. This is how I function. This is what I need from a space of worthiness. This is what I need. This is what I deserve. This is what I'm served by, right? And then to go by that, and then to also have the power to hold that boundary. Now, when we do that, inevitably we find some distorted masculine energy. And when I was talking about dealing with this energy, I was talking about like alpha male podcasts. I've just been watching videos about them, not the things themselves, because I have a hard time tolerating that. Because a lot of them, and I watched quite a few of them, but they all seem so angry and so hurt and so wounded and so insecure. It was their thing. They had their issue, right? But then they show up and they say, well, men have to be like this and women have to be like this. So I have to be like this, but also all men have to be like, and women have to be like this. And then there are all these dynamics that come in, like the time, if you're a 20-year-old woman, you're old. If you have children, you don't have value as a woman. And then, the tanks and with the thingy and the army and the fighting and the lack mentality, it just becomes that you're gonna meet this energy in people when you show up with divine masculine energy. And this is something that I imagine men would know well. That when you tend to show up, I remember years ago the example of David Beckham, who was a football player, but he used to wear sarongs. He's just comfortable in himself, comfortable in his body. He liked fashion. He liked sarongs, which are basically like pieces of fabric you wrap around your waist. And it looks like actually what we wear in Africa also, but it can look basically like a skirt, like a long skirt, right? And then people were making jokes about it, distorted masculine energy. But that's their stuff. They're triggered in their own wounding, in their own limitation, sense of limitation, and then coming at it. And so this is not something to pursue. Again, also a message in the prior readings is that when you go into this energy of joyous creativity, it's not like the world is just going to leave you alone. It's not like people are just going to leave you alone and say, okay, you do you, which would be quite wholesome. But there is going to be an effort to bring you back into line. Like, who do you think you are? Or you're being selfish, or you're being petty, or you're being this, or you're being that. And again, all of those benchmarks that they apply to essentially have you conform to what they think and also what they are attached to in their reality, right? You have to show up in a certain way, because if you don't, then they feel less than. And I tell you, all of those podcasts, it takes, like, seriously, these alpha men podcasts, one question and they're completely undone. Completely undone. There was this guy who tells women they're not special, which is just ridiculous, right? Everybody's special. But yeah, he tells women they're not special. So there's a woman asks him, why do you do that? What do you get out of it? Undone. Over. So many of them. Just one question. It's a position of weakness. It's distorted, so it's weak. It's like you're standing in an imbalanced pose. But here there's balance. 2 feet on the ground, strength, clarity, because again, you're coming from who you are, who you really are, what you really want, as opposed to coming from all these ideas, all these distorted notions. That's a very insecure position to come from, and you don't want to place yourself in that position in a relationship, especially not if you're seeking joyous creativity, right? If you're seeking a higher way to create relationships, they just don't go together. So let's look at what we have next. We've got Archangel Raphael. We have got the healer. Interesting. Are you now? We have got abundance again. Double down on that concept. This was your abundance. I feel like this is abundance in the relationship. And then finally we have sacred space. Beautiful. Yeah, this is very much talking about what to not expect, but what you would find in a relationship where there is joyous creativity as a shared approach. With Archangel Raphael, it says, I invite Archangel Raphael to bring healing and knowledge into my life. It's very healing. I like that. It's very healing, and it also is very educational. We learn a lot in these kinds of relationships and in these kinds of connections where there's the match. And you see here, there's light. So we're not learning a specific way, a specific path. Like I was saying in these podcasts, they have these specific rules. If you have an Instagram, you're cheating. If you sneeze 3 times, you're evil. It's like that. It's so limited and so limiting. And it's the same talking points and these same ideas and this, dogmatic framework they're setting up. Red pill, blue pill, all this stuff. It's just limited. It's very, very limited. But in creativity, which goes back to this notion here with a spiral, there's a lot that can be created. There's lots of different ways to do things, to go about things, how we communicate, how we meet up, what we choose to do on a Saturday night, what we're going to do long term, where we're going to live, how we're going to live, all of these things. There are so many different ways in which things can happen. But here there is an allowance for what's really true for each person, and that's healing, and that's also part of the abundance. In a sense, it's almost like the abundance is your ability to speak for yourself and to speak about what works for you. And that's not even necessarily something random. It really can be one of those new skills that we need in the coming times, especially to be thriving in relationships, the ability to verbalize who we are, to put it into words, to communicate who we are, what we're about, but also to communicate needs and to communicate desires and to communicate expectations and to communicate boundaries and so on. And for that to be something that shows up in the relationship and actually leads to something, actually goes somewhere and is super creative, that's part of the abundance that you have and that you can then co-create with another. With that, we have healer. And healer, it says, I am loving and compassionate and able to bring healing to others. And I love that. And now straight away, of course, you're not going to be other people's healers in relationship. That is incredibly dysfunctional. But the healers is talking about healing relationship in general, so that you are a healer of the human way of relating, especially with this bear here, which is boss energy, and therefore coming through with leadership energy and what we've been talking about here on the channel lately. There's the notion that you are going to be with this person. It's like the two of you become pioneers of relationships, and that kind of pioneering is healing. And this is you bringing that to the other person. You do bring them love and compassion, and you do allow them to realize healing for themselves in relationship to you. But it's also that your example to others is going to be healing. There's something about you and how you show up in relationships and what you normalize that also gives other people the permission, quote unquote, but it feels like to them it's a permission, but you help them to create the same thing for themselves, to even visualize what that would be, what that would look like, and of course to seek it for themselves. And that's how we heal relationship in general. It's not about people doing what you do, but it's about you doing what works for you, standing true in that, and then showing other people that they can too. And again, we have that spiral again, which is showing the creativity unfolding. This would be like an overflow effect. You do you, and then it overflows from your life into other people's lives. It inspires them, it touches them, it guides them, it influences them. And that's part of your healing work at relationships in general. Now with that, abundance came back again, right? Beautiful. I am grateful for the abundance nature and the universe provide in my life. And we have again the notion of the mirroring. This person has the water in their hair, and what they hold and behold also has the water. So what they are is what they experience. And we have all those butterflies and all those transformations. And this goes back to the notion of what you're going to experience in relationships. It's going to be very transformational and very healing. And there's a big expansion going on in terms of what you can create, because there's also synergy. And synergy happens when you, another person, the relationship, the people you know, the people they know, maybe both of you have kids and things like that. Everyone involved brings their energy into how the relationship unfolds, and it creates a synergistic effect that is bigger than the sum of the things brought to the table, right? The bigger than the sum of each person's energy, each person's wants, needs, desires, and what they deserve, what would serve them. All of that just creates this huge, beautiful concoction that creates something really, truly, it can seem miraculous from the outside. And it's miraculous in that it's just going to be fulfilling to so many people on so many levels in so many ways. And of course, most importantly, to you and the person you're in relationship with. Now, the other aspect of abundance is that this is not limited to just one kind of relationship. This could be your friends, this could be your children, again, as I was saying, it can be your partner, it can be your boss, it can be your employees, it can be your clients, it can be your hairdresser, right? There's just an abundance of beautiful relationships and connections that are ahead for you in the future for you. But again, they do require you to show up in this way and to follow this path through to its natural conclusion. With sacred space, there is the notion, we're coming back to that origin. And it says, I find peace, security, and contentment when surrounded by nature's beauty. And that's the thing. It takes power, right? Peace, power. It takes you really being at home in you, really being at home in what you love, what you value, what you want, what you're creating for yourself, that you see what's sacred about it so that you will protect it. And you don't always have to protect sacred space with sacred wars. You can protect sacred space by very peacefully moving away, saying no, deselecting, it doesn't have to be a big to do, but you have to have clarity that this is something that you have the right to protect, something that, links to sovereignty. You have the right to lead the life that you want to lead. You have the right to be you. You have the right to follow your dreams. It's sacred. And when you know that, you go about things in a completely different way. And again, this is something that people react to very heavily and even violently, that you can get attacked for being that. And then they can link it to your gender. They can link it to your sexuality. They can link it to your personality, whatever it is. People will find different ways to attack it. But at the end of the day, it's for you to stand firm in it. It's for you to stand firm in your truth and your right to pursue your life according to your truth. And so it is, my love. That was the reading. And we have a takeaway, which says forgiveness again. Wow. You are now able to activate the power of love in order to release past hurts. Love it. And it's coming back because there's another aspect of forgiveness the Spirit wants to highlight. And look at all these colors. There's a lot of beauty. There's a lot of abundance, again, of very different kinds of connections and relationships on the other side of it. But it's very important to let go of the way relationships have been with forgiveness, so that you're not carting that around. Just because people couldn't love you properly, accept you properly before, when you showed up in the power of who you are, doesn't mean that it's the way it's going to be now or moving forward. It's important to let it go so something new can come in and something new can be co-created. And so, my love, those were the messages that I have for you. That felt lovely. And if you want to continue, we're going to continue on with the healing. And if you want to do that, then you can head over to my Patreon with the information in the description box. Otherwise, for here and now, that was the reading. Thank you so much for being here, for bringing your energy, sending you lots of love, and I will be seeing you around. Bye.